Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the tropes and trends of the horror genre. This is episode 92. Turn out the lights and slip into something more comfortable because we're finally doing the episode we've been threatening.
Oh, yeah.
It's time for sexy horror.
Woo-hoo!
And I'm Liz Williams here with
Eric Lee.
And Mike Campbell, and I'm a little concerned because Eric is wearing a kimono tonight, which is just kind of it's a little weird, but I'm gonna roll with it.
And pink bunny slippers. It's a great combo.
Roll with it.
So
we've been like joking about sexy horror for multiple episodes. Sexy vampires, sexy leprechauns,
sexy thrillers,
sexy trolls. So finally, we put our money where our mouth is and tried to figure out some of the sexy horror out there. And I'm going to be honest, it's a lot easier to joke about it than it is to like really pick out sexy horror movies.
Oh my God, is it ever? So, you know what's funny? Like, I think it was like the third or fourth episode we did, which was ghosts. Mm-hmm. And I remember Eric said, let's do ghosts next. And I thought, okay, there's not that many ghost horror films. Oh my Lord, there was like way too many ghost horror films. This is the exact opposite, where I thought, there's tons of erotic horror.
Yeah,
but there's not.
Well, yeah, and until you really get to start scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you start dealing with real, just raw exploitation movies, and and where it's
anthropophagus is not sexy.
No, that's probably the least sexy thing available.
Well, and some of them it's just because you have a sex scene in a horror movie, which you're gonna have in a vast majority of them, doesn't mean it's like, a sexy horror movie. It's just a horror movie with a sex scene in it. So trying to find something that
thematically sexy
is in the middle of, just a sex scene in a horror movie so that someone can get killed because they took their shirt off, or like exploitative, like almost bridge too far stuff was harder than I thought.
And when I was...
This was a learning exercise.
It was. And when I was looking around, there was a couple films that kept showing up on all of the lists, and I'm still scratching my head. I am scratching my head how people considered these to be sexy films. One of them is Planet Terror.
What?
The Robert Rodriguez film. The other is Hellraiser. And I'm like, why?
No.
Hellraiser I can see, because that's like
bondage.
Maybe
stuff.
if you're into bondage and sadomasochism and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I guess, but what?
Yeah, I saw the same thing.
Is just because Rose McGowan's hot.
Yeah, I think having a sexy actress in it, that's a lot of horror movies.
Yes.
Right. But when you're looking for something that is thematically sexy, you're right. That the challenge goes way up, trying to find something that you can
where the sexy runs throughout the entire film.
Correct.
And is not just in one small bit of the film.
Right.
That's a challenge.
Right. And
this is the most I will say this is the most challenging podcast we've ever done.
Yeah, and
I am laying the gauntlet down.
Harder than our Arbor Day special.
Arbor Day was easy.
I think there was a grand total of 15 movies with killer plants in them.
Plant-based horror.
Yeah.
Let's get back to talking about plant-based horror.
Get Mike into a place where he's a little bit more comfortable talking about this stuff. I think we had. This was a bit of a kicking and screaming thing for Mike. I think we had proposed this before. It's like no.
Well, and why? You know why I think it was subconsciously, because I knew all the goddamn sexy horror films are vampire movies.
Yeah, most of them.
Vampires
do have the market cornered on sexy horror.
I did look. I looked far and wide for a sexy non-vampire horror film, and I found 1.5-ish.
All right. So we've got a little bit of a different way that we're going to break this particular episode up. And actually, Liz, why don't you go ahead and lead us through the four types that we're going to be talking about?
Okay, we're going to kick it off with the best sleazy sexy horror movie. So that could push us a little bit to the exploitation area, but we'll see. Then best romantic sexy horror movie. I feel like this is where we're going to see all the vampires, maybe even some sparkling Twilight vampires. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, no.
Most artistic sexy horror movie, and then the most horrific sexy movie. So if they started out making a sexy movie and then the script gets flipped, that'll be where we go from there.
All right.
So I'm interested to jump in and see what you guys have picked. Who wants to kick it off?
Did you have, Liz, before we jump in too far, did you have any other qualifiers that you entered into your brain in terms of what constitutes sexy and what doesn't?
That is a good question. I went with kind of vibes for my movie.
I
all of mine have the vibe.
I sort of vibe too. Eric?
Yeah, so it might not be all laden with sex, but like one of mine is definitely just a vibe throughout the whole film.
And we did tell Eric he could not.
No lightsabers, Eric.
No lightsabers, and you could not pick films with Samara Weaving in them. Exclusively.
Well, I think I had to defend the whole thing of lightsabers are not sexy to Mike.
You turned me.
Yeah.
I see lightsabers now in a very different light.
Yeah, you turn the blade off, and it's like one step away from being a vibrator. Really, I mean, come on. So, all right. So, who's kicking this whole thing off? What are we gonna?
I think Liz should kick the whole thing off since this was your idea, Liz.
All right.
We're saying with such disdain, Mr. Campbell.
All right. So for best sleazy sexy horror movie, I have two options here. One of them is a complete vibe of sleaze through the whole way. That's a good movie. And then one of them has a sexy scene that's so horrific that I was just like, this is sleazy. So I'm going to give you both. The first one is going to be the 1996 Quentin Tarantino film From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes.
Oh, it's Robert Rodriguez.
Produced
by Quentin Tarantino.
That's right.
And this one takes place, it's got two guys on the run from a bank robbery, George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino, and they kidnap a preacher played by Harvey Keitel and his family in their RV to sneak across the border to Mexico, and they're holed up in a topless bar, a strip club.
That titty twister.
Unfortunately, the bar also happens to be the home base for a gang of vampires, and they got to fight their way out to the death. So completely sexy. You've got Salma Hayek playing a stripper, doing her, dances. She's super sexy. The whole vibe is sexy. When they get in there, it's got Harvey Keitel and his kids
super
and,
sexy.
kind of like trying to cover their eyes. No, that's funny. But so that was my first pick. But my second one that is sleaze to the max because you can't like unsee what you see is the movie from 2009 directed by Vincenzo Natali called Splice.
Oh,
yeah, right. That actually that shows up on quite a few.
Collision.
That shows up on
Really?
quite a few lists.
Yep, but you keep going.
Okay, so this one, the summary is sexy geneticist, Clive and Elsa, played by Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley, specialize in creating hybrids of species. When they propose to use a form of human DNA, their pharmaceutical company bosses forbid it, forcing them to conduct their experiment in secret. The result is Dren, a creature with amazing intelligence and physical attributes. At first, she exceeds their wildest dreams, but as she begins to grow at an accelerated rate, she threatens to become their worst nightmare. And she does. And there are some horrific sex scenes in this movie that are wrong on so many levels.
Yes.
That's why I thought that this is one of the... I don't know. I don't know why I think it's sleazy. I guess it could be a creative movie. It's more sci-fi, and you really are like, oh my God, what am I looking at? But I was like, there's so many elements to this character and the way who she's having sex with that you're like, it is wrong. So it gets sleazed for me.
Yeah, we'll get back to this one for me because I think this is going to end up on the back end of my list for the most horrific sexy movie. I think this one has, and I'll do a little bit of an explanation for it when we get to it.
All right.
Who's up next? Eric, what do you got for best sleazy, sexy horror?
All right. Well, I'm going with a movie that it's become a cult classic. This is a 1974 film.
What?
Called Vampires, Vampyres. Vampires, directed by Jose Ramon Larraz.
Not to be confused with Vampires Lesbos.
No, I've seen that one too.
Yeah,
I've seen that one, and I saw Daughter of Dracula. I saw The Vampire Lovers. This was back in the day. This was an X-rated movie. Does it still hold X-rated cred? Yes,
really,
but it is not porn, right?
Okay.
So it's not.
So it's classy.
Well, it's not, but at the same time, but it's
Come
like
on, you got to give us some details.
Well, this is probably considered more of an erotic thriller. There's lots of nudity and sex, but nothing pornographic by today's standards, right? So this is 74.
Sure.
So you see lots of lovemaking and particularly lesbian lovemaking, and then you get
sexy.
Some guy comes in with a pistol and kills them at the very beginning of the movie, and then it turns out that they come back and they're in this big castle, and it's the story of Miriam, who was apparently Playboy Playmate of the Month in 1973 or something like that, named Anilka. That's the name of the actress. And then Fran, who's Marianne Morris, who was a page 3 girl in Britain. And so this is very much, it looks like a Hammer movie. It is, there's a big creepy castle, and there's these two vampires, and what they'll do is that they'll hide along the side of the street, and then when they see a car come along with a guy in it, they'll go, "Hey, can we get a ride?" And, we just need to go to our homes, this castle. And they go back to the castle, and it's pretty straightforward, vampire seduction stuff. But they get him really drunk, and they seduce the guy, and then they will cut him open and drink his blood.
Is that the sleaze?
Where
is the sleaze?
There's a lot of a lot of skin and a lot of sex scenes in the movie, but it actually is very much a vampire movie. It's not. It does not. There's these are spectacular looking young women, to be sure, and it is because I thought I had I think we've had Jeff Dean on before.
That's right.
Talking about
several times
The Vampire Lovers, which is with Ingrid Pitt.
Yep.
By comparison, that one is almost like a fairy tale.
Right.
And it is truly a Hammer movie, and so they they show boobs, and that's in that one, but it's not it's more of a Dracula story, where this one is it's actually pretty good. I think for a couple of actresses who are essentially models,
right.
They really they play it straight. There's you never feel like you're being forced into watching someone who can't act try and get through it. I think there are some storytelling hiccups, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
I think the thing was made for £42,000. I mean, it's not really. It's a super cheap movie.
Well, it's 1974, and you got Playboy Playmates.
Yeah,
so.
and it is super.
Got to give it a little bit of a pass.
It's there's definitely a story through line, and it's sleazy sexy. I think I appreciated that they didn't go for like going with a full moon or a trauma thing where they're just going for gags.
Right.
Because I remember going with Mike to see Class of Nukem High at the Hollywood Theater, and it turned into a softcore porno movie, and I felt really uncomfortable. I mean, it was really...
No, that was Class of Nukem High Part 4.
Yeah, something like that. It doesn't matter.
It was Part 4. Well, it kind of matters.
Not sort of. It's still lowest common denominator, and
all I know is Lloyd Kaufman was in the audience, in attendance, and he did a Q&A. So that was the part that mattered.
Oh God, that movie was a hot mess because it was narratively just completely fractured, and it just seemed like I'm gonna jam some sex scenes into this thing. It's like no, that's Where I think Vampires is. It's a good story.
Yeah.
But it also happens to have, 2 two very voluptuous women kind of rolling around with each other a bunch. And then chewing on guys and sucking their blood out. So that's
sexy.
There you go.
Sexy.
Hey,
and
that's
sleazy.
sexy horror.
Sexy lesbian vampire horror.
Sexy and sleazy.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike.
My first film is a film that Arnold T. Blumberg from the Zombie Mania book wrote. This film was a little more than a twisted catalog of fetishistic imagery for horror movie aficionados keen to have a female zombie they can actually find attractive.
Okay.
Any guesses? This, of course, is the 1993 romantic horror film that is pretty goddamn sleazy called Return of the Living Dead, Part 3. And the thing that's interesting about this, I was struck very early on in the film, and it's basically kind of a Romeo and Juliet story. It's a young gentleman whose dad is in the military, and he is in charge of the 2,4,5 trioxin, the trioxin gas experiment. Of course, if anyone remembers Return of the Living Dead, you will remember the 2,4,5 trioxin gas experiment and how that all went. But he has the young gentleman whose dad is in the military and in charge of this experiment. He has a young girlfriend who is a sort of goth type girlfriend, and he explained to her what the father is doing, and she insists on seeing these people being reanimated, these zombies being reanimated back to life, or humans being reanimated back to life and becoming zombies. And they see the experiment. She is very turned on by said experiment. They go home, and then she decides she wants more of this experiment. They get on his motorcycle, and in a total Ari Aster ripoff, she flies off the motorcycle and hits her head on a telephone pole. Anyway, it's interesting because it's not that much of a ripoff, but he decides to use the 2,4,5 trioxin gas to reanimate her to some degree of success. Although he reanimates her, she comes back to life, but then she quickly starts to develop zombie-like tendencies. And her way through, which is this funny kind of like very parked firmly in the year 1993, it's kind of got this sort of like kind of grungy, sort of Nine Inch Nails sort of sadomasochistic.
She's got a lot of spikes.
Aesthetic where she puts the spikes into her body to quell the pain that's being caused by the zombie virus, and that's how she ends up with all the spikes. The thing that was great about the film is that you get to the end of the film, and the first like 10 credits that they show you in very, very bold credit font face is all the people that did all the special effects work, because there is so much special effects work in the film, and it's great. It is so great. There's no CGI in this film. It is all practical effects, and it is a super fun film. And even though it is kind of dated to 1993, it is a solid zombie film. And I kind of forgot about it because I remember seeing, obviously, Return of the Living Dead, masterclass in filmmaking. Return of the Living Dead Part 2, so-so. Return of the Living Dead Part 3, also so-so, but pretty gosh darn good. And I think it fits really well in the sexy horror genre because it really is kind of it's sort of a sleazy Romeo and Juliet story where he is, being pulled apart by his father, who is obviously focused on this military experiment, whereas the goth girlfriend is trying to pull the son in a very different direction, and he's kind of torn between these two worlds, and he has to decide what to do. And of course, he picks love. He picks love. So that is my sleazy, sexy horror film, Return of the Living Dead Part 3, 1993.
Well, a movie that all of a sudden, as soon as you started talking about this, I realized I forgot there was a non-vampire sleazy horror, Frankenhooker.
Frankenhooker. Absolutely. Yes.
Patty Mullen.
Yeah.
With the rubber faced Patty Mullins. Yo, you want a potty? And it was so. It's like it's. And that is without a doubt just pure exploitation sleazy, but at the same time a hell of a lot of fun.
Well, you didn't mention Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers either.
I haven't seen Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
Oh, come on.
So, no, but Frankenhooker that's a classic.
Yep.
So anyhow, that one I just had to throw that one out there. Just and that's another one for Jeff Dean, which is
that's right.
That's one of his favorites.
Yes. All right, moving on to the best romantic sexy horror movie. Liz.
Okay. So I'm going vampires here, and I'm going for a whole vibe of the movie, plus incredibly sexy people playing the leads. And this is 2013, Only Lovers Left Alive, directed by Jim Jarmusch.
Jim Jarmusch doing it right this time.
Jim Jarmusch, he can do something that I like, just not The Dead Don't Die. Yep. Stick with vampires, stay away from zombies, I guess. Okay, so this stars Tilda Swinton as Eve, Tom Hiddleston as Adam, and the summary is a depressed musician reunites with his lover, and though their romance has endured several centuries, it is disrupted by the arrival of her uncontrollable sisters, and the artistic and sophisticated vampire lovers ponder their ultimate place in society. So
sounds very heady, like a Jarmusch movie.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, this plot sounds just like so self-indulgent and everything, and it is a little bit. But God, they're gorgeous. Tilda Swinton has this amazing hair in this movie, and it's also set. Tom Hiddleston is living in Detroit, and so Detroit is kind of decaying and crumbling all around him, and she's coming from Tangier, so you have amazing set pieces, and just it's a beautiful film, and this is all about the vibe of this movie, not gratuitous sex, nothing like that. This is a romance horror movie because vampires. So
yeah,
I don't know
setting the vibe.
About this one, but I love it. It's all about the vibe. They are so hot and so sexy, and you just look at them. Even if you just look at the poster, she's just like lounging over him on this kind of velvet couch in this decrepit, but grand house, from Detroit, and it's amazing. And they're kind of, they both get blood from suppliers, so you don't fully have, people being murdered by them, but it's really cool. It's very good.
I want to see it. I have not seen this one. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet either. So no,
great.
this I know that it. I kind of swore off a little bit because of the Jim Jarmusch after Dead Don't Die. But,
sure. Liz, wasn't this on your list for the best vampire films as well?
Yes.
Yes, I thought that's where I first heard of it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got to see this.
It's a great film. And it's not a traditional vampire film either. So we will judge Jim Jarmusch by this film and not by Dead Don't Die for his.
That's right.
Jim Jarmusch, if you want to come on and talk with us about,
we'd be happy to have you on.
And we will avoid talking about Dead Don't Die. We will lavish praise on you for.
If you want to defend yourself, that's fine.
Yes.
All right.
He's very talented and does some cool stuff.
Mystery Train. I love Mystery Train.
This one I love.
All right.
Oh yeah, he did do that. Down by Law, of course, like classic. So let's just forget The Dead Don't Die ever happened.
Yeah, I think The Dead Don't Die was something that he just slapped together on a weekend bender with some of his friends down in Hollywood. It felt like it was. He knows so many people and so many people love working with him, but at the same time, it's like get a script first,
right?
So
yeah.
So now Eric, shifting on to me,
get romantic.
This one was actually pretty easy for me.
What?
Cat People, 1982.
Oh.
Paul Schrader, who knows a little bit about sexy. He did American Gigolo, he did Hardcore, he did Affliction.
Hardcore is not sexy though.
But well, the thing that he has a visual capacity to do some very stylistic stuff. This is Natasha Kinski, who is the human embodiment of a cat. Malcolm McDowell, who is also very cat-like, playing a sibling couple of descendants of essentially leopard gods,
Right.
who were fed human babies and were cursed to actually that they could only have sex with either their own kind, or if they actually had sex with a normal human, they would turn into a giant cat, and they would have to kill somebody to get to turn back into a human form. And Malcolm McDowell has been doing this for a while and is perfectly comfortable with this. Natasha Kinski is just getting used to this idea because she's now a young woman in bloom, as you might say, and it's so that the tagline from I think it's Universal. It says, "A young woman's sexual awakening brings horror when she discovers her urges transform her into a monstrous black leopard." That's
really the tagline.
It's not the tagline.
Oh, it's the summary.
But it's the summering.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the worst tagline ever.
But this was also
the longest. How did it even fit on the poster?
The 1942 Val Lewton cat people,
which you put on your list
of top 25 horror movies of all time. I think
I was going to say you put it on your when we covered
1940s,
the Golden Age.
Yeah, the Golden Age.
When we covered the Golden Age, and I remember we watched the last 30 minutes of it together, and that poor cat was getting tossed all over
the cat effects were much better in the 1982 version. Also, Natasha Kinski spends 40% of the movie naked.
That's the sexy part.
Sexy, but I think, but it's actually, relative to, it's a terrific story. It's the lycanthropy bit, and how John Hurd he's kind of a vanilla everyman.
Right.
He's the zookeeper who falls in love with her. But they do some real kinky stuff. I think at a certain point, once they realize that what her issue is, she's it's like tie me up so that it's like so that I don't kill you. When it's like, but I want you to turn me into a cat because I want to join my family and this kind of stuff. And also, Malcolm McDowell. There's like this weird incest thing of brother-sister stuff.
Cats fundamentally seem like they would be into sadomasochism.
Yeah, well,
they just do.
Cat scratch fever, all that kind of stuff, right? This is. I thought, this is also taking place in the sexiest of cities, which is your city, Liz. This is New Orleans. And
very sexy, very steamy, very
steamy.
Steamy.
Yes. I thought through and through this movie was released the same year. This is 1982.
Yeah. Did you go back and rewatch it?
Oh yeah. We had
and it holds up.
It does. It's really good.
Oh, good. Okay.
And
I'll have to check it out.
And I think because we have some of my friends at the Portland Horror Trivia Massacre.
Right.
We do movie nights, and we watched the 1942 and the 1982 back to back.
Interesting.
And there are a couple of connections. There's a swimming pool scene that gets replicated.
Right.
But certainly the sort of the incestuous family stuff is new to because he couldn't talk about in 1942. This was still the Hays Commission stuff where they were lucky to get away with what they did.
Yeah.
Back then, but this one they just they pour sexy syrup all over the damn thing, and I totally fell for it. And it's
sexy syrup,
but it's
now going. We're going 9.5 weeks there.
Yeah, no, it
is syrup.
And you get to see her transform. And at a certain point, you also know what's sort of in store. It's like, is she just going to tear this dude apart, right? And and it's not quite like in a lot of sort of sexy horror movies when you have a female monster, it's the seduction, like with vampires, like the one that we were just talking about, right?
Right.
But this one was two people who are in love, but she's got a monstrous issue, and I think it was perfect for sort of like sexy romantic, and I'm totally down with that. That was really good.
All right. Okay. My choice for best sexy horror or best romantic sexy horror movie is a film that I hadn't ever seen, and I'm kind of ashamed. And you can chastise me all you want. It was not Carrie.
Cujo.
It was not Cujo. This is a film Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times described as an agonizingly bad vampire movie. It is a film that Rolling Stone said it's a minor horror movie with a major modern movie problem. The director develops so many ingenious ways to illustrate his premise that there's no time left to tell the story. And a film that Camille Paglia wrote in her book Sexual Persona, that it is ruined by horrendous errors when the actress is made to crawl around on all fours, slaving over cut throats, and it's an inappropriate focus on violence rather than sex. This is 1983's The Hunger.
Collision.
Yes, the erotic horror
Collision.
film directed by Tony Scott, starring Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, Susan Sarandon, and as I mentioned before, I was going to be coming back to this certain character, Willem Dafoe, in one of his first roles ever. He has a non-speaking role as a thug who hassles Susan Sarandon at a payphone.
Right.
Yeah. that is Willem Dafoe. This film I just watched the other day. As I said, I had never seen it because
So you never self-identified as goth growing up. You've never seen this before.
I was A, not goth. B, I hate vampire films. C, I don't know that I could get into the theater to see a rated R film of this ilk at that time. And by the time it came out on VHS, I don't think I was terribly interested in seeing the film. But now, several decades later, watching the film, I was fully floored by it, and I completely disagree with Rolling Stone, Roger Ebert, and Camille Paglia. It's a great film. It is. I didn't feel like it was dated.
No, it ages really well.
It ages super well.
Really well.
The only thing that kind of bugged me a little bit, there's a whole series with Catherine Deneuve, plays the character Miriam Blaylock. She of course is sort of the main vampire.
She's the alpha.
She's the alpha vampire. Mm-hmm. David Bowie is the beta vampire. And she, of course, has all these different flashbacks going back to Egyptian times where ostensibly she was infected as a vampire, I think. I think that's what they were trying.
She dates back all the way down to the pharaohs. I mean, really ancient.
Yeah, and the basic premise of the film is that her beta, David Bowie, is the vampirism is caught up with him, and he is quickly dying. Yeah. The aging effects that they apply to David Bowie are all practical effects.
I think they won an Oscar for it.
They are so good.
Oh, did they?
So believable. And there's even a scene when he comes to her in sort of like his last gasp of life and says, please just kiss me. Like, sort of prove that I am alive. Mm-hmm. And they make out with all this makeup on and everything, and it looks so good. Yeah. I was shocked at how they were able to.
The transitions were fantastic. Like when he's in the waiting room, and then you see him from hour to hour shift and just age before your eyes. It is, it's crazy. And David Bowie was great.
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon was really great. And it's so. I mean, I think it's like. There's a bunch of different elements of sexy too. It's not just sort of a singular sexy element. I think there's lots of different pieces and parts.
Shot like a music video.
It is shot like a music video.
Yeah, I mean, well, it opens. The opening shot is Bauhaus, you know, at that goth club. So I cross over with you on this in my in our next category, which is most artistic sexy horror movie. This is what I picked, The Hunger.
Okay,
and. One of my favorite things about this is that it's the man who's aging and the woman who's remaining, where normally it's that kind of trope of the guys out looking for a younger, newer model. And this one, it's flipped. And I love that about this. Also, it's so stylized and so cool and so awesome to look at. I can't imagine what the cigarette budget was on this film. Everybody is smoking and
sponsored by Philip Morris.
Free cigarettes for everyone.
What was cool in the 80s and still has a cool vibe now. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It does have very, romantic and sexy sex scenes and, pretty explicit. But this is also a vibe movie, the whole thing. You just want to like live in this film.
Yeah, I just saw this movie with our patron and friend Sharon Yeblon. And
had you ever seen it before?
Oh yeah, I'd seen it before, but I'd never seen it on the big screen.
Okay, seeing it on the big screen, yeah.
So also a new friend of mine, John Foley, who is who makes movie trailers.
Yep.
So the three of us went to go to the New Beverly Theater, which is Quentin Tarantino's theater in on Hollywood Boulevard, and they just do matinees, and it was a packed house. For this. I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, oh man, I wish I lived in L.A.
Right.
But the moment where Miriam is playing on the piano, and Susan Sarandon is having some wine, and then she accidentally spills some wine on her blouse, and she goes, "Oh my!" And the whole audience just lost it. We were all because it was like, here we go.
Yep.
Susan Sarandon, it's like, and then it becomes that was the seduction scene,
and
sexy
is on.
And I don't.
And she has the line, and I didn't know if it was like a throwback to The Graduate, but she was like, "Are you trying to seduce me?"
Yeah.
Miriam, are you trying to seduce me? I was like, is that a throwback to The Graduate?
It could have been, but
it sure felt like
it certainly was. And I think the other great thing was that the promise was that Miriam's lovers get to live forever, but the thing that they don't get guaranteed is stay young forever.
Well, right. And that's like the total. I mean, like what a Faustian deal that was.
Yeah.
She was like, well, apparently you didn't listen to exactly how I phrased that.
It's like,
yeah.
Forever and ever.
On that one.
It's forever and ever.
Yeah.
But you're going to be old as hell.
Yeah. Catherine Deneuve, stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, this was like 20 years after she did Repulsion, right? Thereabouts. I think she did Repulsion in 62.
Probably.
Yeah.
So,
it was about 20 years.
She was, absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
I mean, how can it not be sexy with Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie? I mean, it's literally impossible.
Sunglasses
I
at
don't
night,
know.
too.
Like they could have made. I don't know what they could have made that wouldn't be.
No, and there's been some rumblings that they might try and redo this. It's like don't.
No.
Oh no.
No.
I think those are quashed. Warner Brothers in 2009 announced that they were going to do a remake of it, and it has not gone anywhere. So I'm hopeful 11 years down the road they're like it's died a death, but never say never with Hollyweird because they are money grubbers and they will ruin a good thing.
Yeah, no, that
would be a really bad idea.
Absolutely does not need to be remade.
Yeah, and it sort of felt like, it had that sort of that soft filter, almost like.
Maybe if Lindsay Lohan was in it, then I would say.
Yes. So who would be the David Bowie look like? Would be Justin Timberlake or?
Oh no!
It's on. Hollywood, I got ideas.
So that was also your artistic one, yes?
That was mine, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
What do you got for artistic, Eric?
Well, I had a backup because I figured hunger might come up. I'm going with a movie that we talked about when we did Medical Malfeasance.
Ooh.
This is the Pedro Almodovar film, The Skin I Live In.
Oh, yeah, you talked about this a lot.
This is, nobody does, we've talked about other directors who do sexy.
Right.
Nobody does sexy as well as Pedro Almodovar. He did Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. He did Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. He did Volver. It's his shtick. And he's also not afraid to push boundaries, and
for real.
And it doesn't hurt when you have Antonio Banderas as your lead, and Elena Anaya, who more recent viewers may be familiar with. She plays a villain in Wonder Woman, but she plays this sort of prisoner in Antonio Banderas, who's Dr. Ledgard, who's a brilliant surgeon who's trying to find a new a skin to be mosquito-proof skin, and that apparently she is his test subject. or at least that's the initial red herring. And so this young woman, is in the basement of his lovely mansion, and it's a very strange relationship, and it has one of the most mind blowing kind of, oh, that's what's going on kind of things. That happens towards the end of the movie, because it starts weaving in some backstories where you realize that Dr. Ledgard lost his wife to a car crash, and he sees something of Vera Cruz, the young woman, and he starts trying to make her look more like his ex-wife.
Right.
There's also a story where he's lost that his daughter went insane because of losing the mom.
Right.
And was also pushed, and then his daughter was also raped,
right,
by a guy.
Not sexy,
and
not
then
sexy.
There was some,
to be clear,
yeah, and there's a lot of kind of weird. I mean, a big red flag. This is a very rapey movie. There's
not sexy,
right?
But it's
that's not sexy, but everything else about it is.
Oh no, it just oozes kind of like forbidden romance and.
Interesting.
But the sort of the color schemes and the execution of how everything done is just, it's stunning. Almodovar's always got a great sense of color.
Yep.
And then once the revelation hits you, it becomes it switches from sexy to very, very strange.
Yeah. You said that's like an hour in, you get the switch, right?
Oh, more than that. It's like it's a 2-hour movie. It's a long movie, and I think at about the hour and a half marker, you go,
that's where you get the switch.
It's like, holy shit,
Okay.
And then you realize it's like there is a whole heaping bucket of wrong about this. So though it is, I think that there's a real sort of connection between Banderas and Elena Anaya, and the way that they play off of each other. He's both a protector, but also a prison, or she's a prisoner and a test subject, but she's also sort of in love with him, or is she? It's a lot of sort of strange kind of cross-pollination of sexual politics that get put into this thing.
Huh.
And it doesn't go the way that you think it does. It's
interesting.
I
want to see
mad scientist for sure.
Yeah, I remember when you talked about this in the medical malpractice episode we did with Jeff Dean.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see that. Yeah,
it's
I'll put it on the list. It's going on the list.
Not an easy watch, but it is a beautiful watch.
Yep. All right. Oh, it's me.
Nice.
This one was actually kind of tough, believe it or not. I had two films that I saw that I really liked, that I thought fit very well into this category. One is The Daughters of Darkness from 1971, also known as Les Lèvres Rouges, or The Red Lips, or The Red on the Lips, or from the Netherlands, Dorst naar Bloed, meaning bloodthirst. This is an English Belgian horror film directed by Harry Kummel and starring Delphine Seyrig, Daniel Umit, John Carlin, and Andrea Rau, and it is an erotic, a vampire film.
Oh, another vampire movie from Mr. Campbell.
It is. Well, this is a tough one to avoid.
Yep.
It's a recently married couple. They're on their honeymoon. They check into this beautiful grand hotel in Belgium. It's basically nobody is in the hotel save for the two of them and a Hungarian countess named Countess Bathory. We know where that's going to go.
Yep.
And her secretary, Ilona, and Countess Bathory becomes obsessed with the couple on their honeymoon. Simultaneously to her obsession is a whole series of murders nearby in Bruges. There's a series of 3 murders that happen, and then the couple encounters, or they discover the fourth murder, and they quickly realize that they have a connection to all the young girls that are being killed in Bruges. It is a really, really amazing film. It is so beautiful. Camille Paglia, again, in her book Sexual Persona, said that Daughters of Darkness is a good example of a classy genre of the vampire film that follows a style that she calls highly gothic. Paglia sees this abstract and ceremonious style which depicts evil as hierarchical glamour and deals with eroticized Western power. Time Out, the British magazine, it's like the British, I think it's like a weekly.
Okay.
They put Daughters of Darkness number 9 on their top 100 list. I had not seen Daughters of Darkness because I don't watch vampire movies. But when I sat down and watched it, and you can actually stream it for free on Daily Motion. I'm not exactly sure how because you can't stream it on Amazon, but that's a topic for a different discussion. It's a film that is definitely parked in 1971, but it is so well shot, and it kind of reminded me weirdly a little bit of the Ty West film The Innkeepers, both in terms of the pacing as well as the fact that obviously they are in essentially an abandoned hotel that is this massive hotel where the hotel kind of takes on this sort of creepy character of its own, and the crew is left, or the couple is left to deal with Countess Bathory. It's a good film. It is very suspenseful. It is very shocking. There is an end scene with Countess Bathory where I won't say exactly what happens, but it is so gnarly and so grisly that, like, even by today's standards, is really, really shocking. This film holds up so well for a film that is on the edge of being 50 years old. It really, really holds up well. The acting is great. The pacing is great. The soundtrack is great. The score is wonderful. And the story is really good. So I encourage folks to go look at that. I will say I'm going to double dip here, which I never do. The other one that I was really drawn to in terms of the other one that I was really, really drawn to in terms of being an artistic film is another film from the early 70s. This is a 1973 Italian horror film called Baba Yaga.
Oh, really?
Which I know, and I thought I've been wanting somebody to do the Baba Yaga story, but they basically take sort of the Baba Yaga story, update it, bring it into sort of present day Milan.
Okay.
And it's a woman who is sort of
a witch.
She's like a sorceress. Yeah. She's a sorceress, and she seduces this young fashion photographer, and so it's got this really like groovy, like freak beat soundtrack, and
70s Italy, cool.
Yeah, everybody's cool, and there's fashion everywhere, and there's like a mixed race couple who are
scandalous.
Yeah, and it's got all this great, like, you feel like you're in Milan in 1971 in a like a fashion photography studio. But the sorceress seduces the fashion photographer, and she seduces the fashion photographer with this doll who is dressed up it's like a doll, like a doll, and the doll is dressed up like she's in a Judas Priest video where she's covered in bondage,
spikes and leather.
Yes, and it's very strange, but she is drawn to this doll. And
it's the doll of Rob Halford.
Yes, it's the doll. Yes, it's the ghost of Rob Halford is seducing the fashion photographer. Baba Yaga. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that they cut it with all this weird, so all the scenes are like cut together with all these weird like photo montages, like close-ups of eyes and close-ups of lips and like stuff that moves really fast. And then there's even some weird animation that they throw in.
So now the traditional version of Baba Yaga has a chicken hut.
She was like an old lady.
And that she flies on a mortise and pestle.
Right.
Does that come into play at all?
It does not. It does not. But there are other elements, which I'm not going to spoil, that do come into sort of the Baba Yaga story. So yes, Baba Yaga, 1973, Daughters of Darkness, 1971. I recommend both. They both look so good. You can see Baba Yaga right now on Amazon for free.
There you go.
Yeah.
And sexy.
All right.
And sexy. And it's sexy.
Nice.
Both are sexy. Both are sexy.
So where are we at now?
Okay.
This is
all right. We're in our last category, which is most horrific sexy movie. So the way I looked at this one was ones that were first trying to be sexy and then took a turn for the horrific.
Yep.
So for my pick, Owen Gleiberman from Variety said, "This film works at least when it's willing to be a human drama, but then it sinks in that you're watching Fame, directed by the Marquis de Sade with a Steadicam." So this is Gaspar Noé's 2018 film Climax.
Oh man, okay, yeah.
So the plot is, in the mid-1990s, 20 French urban dancers join for a 3-day rehearsal in a closed-down boarding school located in a forest to share one last dance. After their rehearsal, they have a party and pass around a large bowl of sangria. Quickly, the atmosphere becomes charged and a strange madness seizes them through the whole night. It seems obvious to them that they have been drugged. They neither know by who or why. And it's soon impossible for them to resist their neuroses and psychoses, numbed by the hypnotic and increasing electric rhythm of the music. While some feel in paradise, most of them plunge into hell. So, this is not my kind of movie. I'm going to be honest. Gaspar Noé is a little, he's hard to watch. I can't watch Irreversible, which is probably what he's most well known for. And then a lot of his other films are about drugs, which I cannot stand. Like when it's like, ooh, it's trippy, and someone's on drugs.
Right. And you're sitting there going, I'm not on drugs.
Right. I'm not on drugs. Yeah. So this one, you're not seeing things through the lens of someone who is on drugs. You're watching it and you're like, I'm not on drugs. What is going on with these people? And they're all at different times. Like it's starting to affect them. So some of them are like, what the hell is going on with you? Things like that. I guess also in his style. So like it opens up with like a 12-minute dance scene. Then it cuts to some interviews of all these dancers, and there was only 2 professional actors in it. Sofia Boutella plays Selva, but she was a dancer prior to becoming an actress. Yeah, and everything else is dancers that the director found at like ballroom. He did like crunk things, found that in the internet. People sent in. Audition tapes to him, so they're all real dancers and none of them have ever acted before. So then after the interviews, which is probably about 20 minutes, you go into another really long scene, which is their choreographed dance that they're wrapping up their last time of rehearsal. And then you're at 45 minutes into the film and the credits start.
What?
So you've seen 45 minutes of this movie before the credits even begin. Yeah, it's nuts. The soundtrack is great if you are into like EDM. I mean, it's Aphex Twin and all sorts of
house music,
Daft Punk and all that kind of stuff. And it's pounding the whole time. So, you're kind of going through the hell with them, but I'm not going to say I'll never watch the movie again, put it that way. But I'm glad that I watched it one time. It was definitely a cool experiment to watch.
What was the sexy? Where do you feel that the sexy came in?
I mean, the dancers are incredibly sexy. First of all, they all have amazing bodies. Second of all, their dances are super sexy, and they're all, it's a bunch of 20-somethings. They're all gonna hook up with each other. They're talking about who they've already hooked up with and who they want to hook up with, this and that. So,
but it goes. Really, at some point,
bad.
Yeah.
It goes bad for most of them. Some of them it doesn't go bad for, and they end up hooking up with who they wanted to hook up with and having a great old time dancing and tripping. So, but for most of them, they don't have a great time at all. I can't even, it really was at the beginning when I was watching it, I was like, man, this is like a grown up version of, I used to always watch Fame and be like, I want to go to the Fame school. Well, after this, you will not have those dreams of like going
I
to
want to
the Fame
live
high school.
forever.
Yeah, exactly.
What was Liz, what was the description at the beginning of the?
It is, you're watching Fame directed by the Marquis de Sade with a Steadicam. Nice. Owen Gleiberman from Variety magazine.
I love it.
So that is my choice. Climax by Gaspar Noé, which some people wrote in on our previous episodes ballads for some of the Thingy Awards, but guys, this was a 2018 film. It actually premiered in 2017 at Cannes, so. Or actually, it did premiere in 2018.
That's right.
Early 2018, not a 2019 release.
So for
All right, what you got, Eric?
For the most horrific sexy movie. So I've already mentioned it. I'm going with Splice from 2009. And,
it's coming back.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I put it here is this made me so uncomfortable the first time I saw it. I had to shut it down, and I couldn't go on.
Really?
But it wasn't, and
nice.
It wasn't always this. It wasn't the sexy part that had me turned off. It was the decision making process of Sarah Polley and
the sexy geneticists,
and Adrian Brody, right? Yeah. So Clive and Elsa were just
sexy geneticists. Don't always make the best decisions.
No, and it's like
they did not.
They were the two of the most irresponsible and maddening mad scientists you will ever see in the movies, and it included. I mean, the fact was that Dren was this hybrid creature that used, as we find out, some of Elsa's genetic material, which leads to other issues like all of a sudden this creature falls in love with Clive, Adrian Brody's character, and they treat it, they're abusive to this creature. They treat it like a pet, and then they treat it like a child,
right?
And then they also realize that what they're doing is that is ethically highly suspect, and so they take it all to a barn, and then. And when Clive, Elsa decides to try and because they give Dren a cat, right, to try and it's like, okay, you can take care of the cat, and then Dren just mischievously takes her scorpion stinger and then kills the cat,
right,
and then tries to make a break for it.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then Sarah Polley, or Elsa goes out and she surgically removes the stinger and the poison glands from their child thing, creature, pet.
Right.
And, funny enough, life will find a way. Dren manages to regrow the stinger and the poison glands. And also when, that Clive has an inappropriate relationship, one with it's potentially a child of reared like a child or a pet. Having sex with a monster is bad enough.
Right.
But also it's got some of Elsa's DNA, and there's this one moment where they're on the floor of the barn, and then Dren just in ecstasy just sort of goes full angel, right?
Yeah,
the wings pop out, and you're going, holy moly, it's this one, it's spectacular.
Right.
It's also really uncomfortable to watch, and
it's super uncomfortable.
Don't have sex with monsters, and pets or children.
But then it gets worse because, spoiler alert, Dren's a hermaphrodite and can change sex, and so one of the funny things as I'm going through this process, I realized that there are some things with the real exception of vampires and maybe Shape of Water.
Yeah.
Male monsters are almost always, if they're sexual things, they become rapey things.
Right.
Yep. And they become what women fear. They're not become the things that women desire.
Right.
And this happens with Dren, where all of a sudden she goes from this sort of sympathetic, weird looking, but at the same time kind of quasi sexy thing.
Right.
Switches gender and becomes this horrific monster rapey thing, and that's like, that makes me twitch.
Yeah,
and it was made to do that, and the movie it's so horrifying in that way. And then the end sequence where Elsa has to make a decision that is also horrifying. It's just like got lots of like it's a nasty sandwich, right? You got your uncomfortable main course. The meat of this thing is the abusive, incestuous thing with the female version of Dren,
right?
And then the topping is the horrifying male rapey version of Dren, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
But at the same time, it's weirdly sexy.
Right.
But it's, if anything makes your flesh crawl, it's this. So,
Yep,
anyways,
agreed.
Splice. It was a hard watch.
Splice.
I watched it again for the from front to back for this because I sort of remembered. It's like, it's kind of oddly sexy. And then
Yeah, and you're like, it's good. Why did I like not? It like makes you forget why you were like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's like this is so wrong.
Yeah, just so wrong.
And there are a few movies that are this. I mean, by comparison, the movie that the X-rated movie Vampires is just a straight up vampire movie with naked women, snacking on guys.
Lesbian vampire.
That's kind of sexy, and it's not didn't feel completely wrong.
Sure.
This just feels wrong.
Right.
So, anyways,
all right, Splice.
Mike.
2009. Also from 2009 is a film we just talked about recently because we were talking about this as it relates to female directors. And this is a film directed by Karen Kusama. I had not seen the film, which is why I wanted to go see it after our guest host had mentioned this. Gwen. Yeah, Gwen. After Gwen had mentioned this film, I was intrigued because I do like a lot of the stuff Karen Kusama has done, and so I really wanted to go watch it, give it a thorough look over, and it is. It's kind of like it's sort of a sexy horror black comedy because it's got a lot of really funny elements to it, but then it's got some sort of very super hyper overtly sexual pieces and parts brought to you by Megan Fox, but not just Megan Fox, also Amanda Seyfried, who is who plays the role of Anita Needy Lesnecki, who is an insecure and studious teenager who is good friends with Jennifer Check, Megan Fox, and there's no real rhyme or reason why they are good friends because Jennifer Check, Megan Fox, is this just horrible, despicable human being
who looks like Megan Fox.
110%. And the two of them, the story is no more complicated than the two of them decide to have a girls' night out at a bar, even though they're in high school. You have to suspend disbelief a little bit. They end up attending this concert for this band, this indie rock band called Low Shoulder, and Low Shoulder is, oh my God, as terrible as an indie rock band you will ever find. And I think they did it very purposefully, very intentionally. A suspicious fire engulfs the entire bar. Jennifer Check, Megan Fox, is whisked away by Low Shoulder. And they, of course, you learn later on in the film that Low Shoulder abducts her, takes her into the woods, and tries to sacrifice her as a virgin. But as Gwen pointed out in the last podcast, she's not even a backdoor virgin. Things go horribly wrong, and Jennifer Check is some sort of like quasi bad teenage girl / demon,
right?
And Needy, of course, her best friend, her sort of nerdy best friend is forced to then deal with the fact that her best buddy is this demon, and no one will really listen to Needy. There is, I will say, an amazing. There's an amazing little guest performance by Amy Sedaris. Amy Sedaris shows up for like a hot second as Needy's mom, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Amy Sedaris! That is so funny."
And this is Jennifer's Body, by the way.
Yes, Jennifer's Body. Did I not mention this is Jennifer's Body? I thought I
no.
said. I thought, this is a 2009 film called Jennifer's Body.
Yeah.
For those of you that did not pick up on my elaborate description of the film, 2009 Jennifer's Body. Really great film. I just saw it this week. I think I'd seen bits and parts of it before, but I hadn't ever given a really thorough look through. Thanks to Gwen from Gwen and Gretchen Watch Movies. You should check that podcast out. I think that's what the podcast is called. Gwen and Gretchen Watch Movies.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I've been trying to get them to give us a link so that we can give them a little bit of a boost. In their efforts.
I believe they're in the process of recording their first episode.
Okay.
Hooray!
Yay.
Yes. So thanks. Anyway, thanks to Gwen for that because it is a great film. Karen Kusama is a really wonderful director. I'm glad she has largely stuck with the horror genre because I think she is a very, very skilled hand. Although this is, I will say, as a horror film, like if you look at all of her films that have a horrific element, they're all very, very different. I mean, this is a very different film than The Invitation because this has a lot of very purposeful comedic elements to it. But it's super well done, and I hope she keeps doing more stuff.
And there we go. All the sexy that you can possibly handle.
I am exhausted. Get me a cigarette right now.
Take a shower.
I am exhausted.
Oh, Lordy.
So and this was, and actually I don't know that we actually threw any sexy thrillers out there. We'd been talking about that.
We've been talking about sexy thrillers,
but
we stayed horror. I think.
What's that?
We stayed horror, true horror.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
I think so.
And so it should be. I think we're not necessarily about the sexy thrillers, though. Your basic instincts and your fatal attractions have their own merits. This is really, for our fans, this is for when you want to have date night. Don't watch Splice.
No.
No.
But there are a number of ones. Like I think The Hunger would be great. I think
Hunger's a great date night film.
Yeah, Cat People is
Cat
great.
People's good. I would encourage folks to watch Baba Yaga and Daughters of Darkness.
Yeah, little kid gloves with vampires. I think that one is. It's not exactly watching it with a rack of Kleenex kind of a movie, but this is it's one to have some caution thrown out there. But let's do our summary.
Yes.
Our recap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Let's see. For best sleazy horror movie, I had 2 picks, which was From Dusk Till Dawn and Splice. Best romantic sexy horror movie, I chose Jim Jarmusch's Only Lovers Left Alive.
Good call.
For most artistic, I had The Hunger. And for most horrific sexy movie, I went with Gaspar Noé's Climax. Eric, what's your picks?
All right. For my sleazy sexy horror, I went with Vampires, directed by Jose Ramon Larraz, who's actually he's got a great credit called his previous movie was Watch Out, Gringo, Sabata Will Return.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, Sabato.
And then for my best romantic horror movie, I went with Cat People from 1982, the Paul Schrader one, but you wouldn't go wrong with the Val Lewton 1942 movie either.
Nope.
82's movie is definitely sexier. Natasha Kinski, Kitty Cat. Mm-hmm. For most artistic sexy horror, I originally had The Hunger lined up, but I also have the Pedro Almodovar The Skin I Live In from 2011. And for the most horrific sexy movie, I have Splice from 2009.
All right. So best sexy horror film is Return of the Living Dead Part 3.
Sleazy.
Sorry. Best sleazy sexy horror movie. Sleazy sexy horror movie. Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Best romantic sexy horror movie is The Hunger. Most artistic sexy horror movie, Daughters of Darkness or Baba Yaga.
Got to check that out.
Yes, and most horrific sexy movie, I'm going to change my vote here. Jennifer's Body is good, but I forgot about It Follows.
Oh.
And I know Liz hates It Follows, but I'm gonna throw
I don't.
I'm gonna throw that. I'm gonna throw that one out too.
And I will also throw in for my sleazy. I think Frankenhooker also sort of. Yes. I mean, this is sort of the throw everything in the basket kind of a session.
Whatever turns you on.
Yeah,
just,
if you want,
follow,
I had
follow that.
Maybe
kink.
some possibilities. Angel Heart was one of my possibilities.
Yep, for sure.
That's one that you can watch on date night. definitely do Angel Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good date night film.
Because I think you have two very sexy leads, and
two very sexy leads, one very steamy sex scene that they had an X rating for, and they had to cut down to get their R.
That was the Rain of Blood scene where they're.
Yes, indeed, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, Mickey Rourke, we miss you so.
Yeah, the old Mickey
that
Rourke.
Face.
Yeah, as opposed to
Come on back.
The wrestler Mickey Rourke, not so much.
As opposed to Mickey Rourke's face
Nightmare
now,
Cinema,
not the projectionist
not
from
the Nightmare Cinema.
Nightmare
Rourke.
Cinema.
Yeah.
Now Mickey Rourke didn't actually. That's just all voluntary cosmetic surgery. That's not him like getting into a car crash.
I believe he actually wrestled or boxed or something.
He was a boxer for a while.
His face got messed up, and then he had cosmetic surgery to try to fix it, and
nope,
it didn't.
Didn't work.
That face now. That's so.
He was
such.
It is a real
such
shame.
a handsome man.
Yeah,
reduced to that.
One of the like ultimate sexy movies of all time, 9.5 Weeks, is Mickey Rourke. So that's where that face gets you.
All right, Eric, take us out with the tagline for Angel Heart or Nightmare Cinema.
Oh, hold on. Okay, you're putting it on me. All right,
or one that you picked.
Okay, so if we go with we're gonna follow Mike's recommendation here.
All right,
blind IMDb tagline here for Angel Heart.
Yeah.
Nothing can prepare you for the ending of Angel Heart. That's a lame tagline, but that's what we're going to give you.
All right.
That is our sexy horror recommendations.
Sexy horror.
So get yourself someone to do Netflix and chill, and we'll catch you next time.